America and Israel's war with Iran is now in India's backyard. This after a US submarine sank an Iranian warship, a ship that was here a fortnight ago as a guest of India, as it was heading back, sailing back to Iran. The operation was called Quiet Death, but the repercussions have been anything but quiet here in India, generating a fierce debate about whether America has displayed a unilateralism that crosses a red line. Yes, the ship was not in Indian waters, it was in international waters, but for a nuclear submarine, an American nuclear submarine, to expand the theater of war so close to India is something that has generated debate and disquiet. Against this backdrop, it is important to note that Prime Minister Modi has given his first major reaction on the unfolding war in West Asia, saying that military conflicts do not lead to any solution. And Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has offered condolences on the death of Ali Khamenei at the Iranian embassy in Delhi. In a moment from now, we'll be talking to veteran diplomat Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. On the broadcast this evening, Prime Minister Modi has made his first major comment on the West Asia war. Although the comments were made in a broad-based sort of way while the Prime Minister was meeting with the leadership of Finland, Modi's comments are not coincidental. Modi said that a military conflict cannot lead to any solution, whether in Russia, Ukraine, or in West Asia. The Prime Minister's comments come on a day when Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri visited the Iranian embassy in the capital, signed the condolence book, met with Iran's ambassador. These were condolences offered on behalf of India over the killing of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, which is what led to this entire war. This was called an Israel-Iran war, but it is no longer that at all. It is a war that has pulled many countries into its domain. And now, with the release of this footage, the war has come to India's doorstep. The Americans revealed that a US nuclear submarine torpedoed or basically sank an Iranian warship as it was sailing back to Iran a fortnight ago. Sailors of the IRIS Dena were actually marching through the streets of Visakhapatnam. This was part of the Navy's fleet review, and these parades were reviewed by no less than President Murmu. This is, of course, an annual naval tradition. Even the Americans, by the way, took part in this exercise, but without any warships. This has generated debate and disquiet at home and also raised concerns about what all of this might mean for India's economic and security interests. I want to welcome to the program now our newsmaker. Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed is with us. He's a veteran diplomat. He's also served as the ambassador of Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the UAE. These are three countries that are very much central to what is unfolding between the Americans and Israel on one side and Iran on the other. Thank you very much, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. Before I get your first comment in, I just want to play out what the Prime Minister said because I'd like to start there. His comments coming on the same day when the country is debating this action of the sinking of an Iranian warship near the coast of Sri Lanka in international waters, but in the Indian Ocean. This is what Modi said earlier today.
Friend, भारत और फिनलैंड दोनों रूल ऑफ लॉ, डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी में विश्वास रखते हैं. हम एकमत है कि केवल मिलिट्री कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से किसी भी मुद्दे का समाधान नहीं निकल सकता. यूक्रेन हो या पश्चिमी एशिया, हम संघर्ष की शीघ्र समाप्ति और शांति के हर प्रयास का समर्थन करते रहेंगे.
So, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, the Prime Minister making a kind of careful statement, but his first statement saying that military conflicts do not lead anywhere. We will keep advocating for peace. This came on the same day that the Foreign Secretary offered condolences. Those condolences were not officially offered in any statement so far, so they were significant. And then, of course, there's the entire episode with the Iranian warship being sunk off the coast of Sri Lanka in international waters, but in the Indian Ocean. Let's start with the Prime Minister's statement. Do you find the statement a kind of message, nuanced as it is, quiet as it is? Do you find it a clearer message than India has been, at least publicly, taking so far?
With deep respect, I should point out that the conflict in West Asia is over 2 years old, and the conflict in Ukraine is more than 4 years old. I recall that PM had made remarks about Ukraine, saying to President Putin that this is not the era of war. And this was touted all over the world as a mild criticism of Mr. Putin. I am uncomfortable with these very loose, lightweight, and very loose and lightweight remarks. They serve very little useful purpose. I wonder if these remarks were conveyed to Prime Minister Netanyahu when the PM was there just a couple of days ago. At that time, the Prime Minister of Israel was preparing for war. And I'm almost certain that we were in the picture and that the visit was timed to ensure that we showed solidarity with Israel before the conflict. We stood shoulder to shoulder with the Israeli Prime Minister. I wonder if at that time this message was conveyed to him that military conflict serves no useful purpose. This is the same Prime Minister of Israel who has killed 72,000 people in Gaza and has killed over 1,000 people in the West Bank over the last 2 years. The International Court of Justice has accused him of genocide, and there are arrest warrants for him in 120 countries. Maybe some of these messages should be conveyed very robustly in Tel Aviv and Washington rather than in the safe precincts of New Delhi.
Let me ask you this, since you started with the visit to Israel, there are two views on it. One is yours, that seems to suggest that India was in the know of the timing of the strikes on Iran. The other view is that India's visit was used as a cover to create deliberate ambivalence, because I saw a lot of Western media also commenting, oh, if Prime Minister Modi is there, then that means the strikes can't happen now. They'll probably happen later. Why are you so convinced that India was in the know?
I'm not very impressed with what Western media has to say. You are fully aware that the United States was engaged in very serious dialogue with the Iranian side. The third round of dialogue had ended very satisfactorily, and it appeared as if we had made tremendous progress. The Omani foreign minister actually went to Washington and personally conveyed the impressions about what he had seen personally with regard to the progress that was made. What was suspicious was that Witkoff and Kushner had remained silent. But at the same time, do recall that they had fixed technical discussions in Vienna. Technical discussions are fixed when you have made tremendous progress on the principles. And we already have a lot of information about what the Iranian side had conceded. But we were suspicious because we knew that as the talks ended on Thursday, that the Americans were looking for an excuse to go to war. I think that the war had already been decided between Netanyahu and President Trump when Netanyahu visited Washington on February 11th. At that time, I am certain that the Prime Minister of Israel had conveyed to the American president that he would go down in American history for effecting regime change in Iran. So it was the allure of regime change that was already in the air. And then you have the visit of our Prime Minister. All of us knew that if the results that Trump is going to announce that he is not happy with the discussions and was supposed to initiate conflict almost immediately. Recall here that he had already shifted an aircraft carrier to the East Mediterranean and also started the evacuation of certain American embassies. Any one of us would have known that this timing is deliberate and that it has been done in order to convey to the Israeli Prime Minister, who otherwise is largely isolated in the international community, that we stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Now, you can give a lot of explanations for this. I'm not convinced about the timing. With regard to the timing, it's very clear that we were very much in the know. We knew that this will happen, but it was important to convey solidarity with Israel before the conflict. That this is
Hmm.
that where friendships are cemented. That बुरे जमाने की दोस्ती है ये.
Hmm. But the
अच्छे जमाने
official
में तो सब खड़े होते हैं हमारे साथ. So this was the most important aspect of the visit. And it worked because it gave Netanyahu was all over the place. He never left our prime minister's side. He was absolutely exultant. It is for him a very important moment because he will also face elections shortly. If he loses the election, he may go to prison because of the Supreme Court verdicts. Anyway, let us not waste our time on this. These facts are very clear. The remarks that have just been made and which you have quoted, they do not set the Jamna on fire. These are much too weak, much too limited, much too, they were overdue. What were we doing over the last 2 years, I would like to ask? When 72,000 people were dying in front of our eyes, did we ever say that violence will not solve any purpose, that war will not solve any purpose? That is when we should have spoken out and we would have been heard with deep respect.
let's talk about where we are now and what may happen next. We have the ship, Iranian warship, um, sunk by the Americans, and the rescue operations were carried out by the Sri Lankans. It took place near the coast of Sri Lanka in international waters, but within the exclusive economic zone, the EEZ as it's called, of Sri Lanka. The Iranians made a big point of saying that the ship was there as a guest of India a fortnight ago. Foreign Minister Jaishankar, has just spoken to his counterpart in Iran. And on the same day, we have seen Vikram Misri offering condolences in the Iranian embassy in the capital. This is the first official condolence that India has offered over the killing of Khamenei. Let's start with the condolences. How do you look at the foreign secretary taking part? Because in the morning, we weren't sure whether who was going to go and sign this condolence book.
With deep respect again, this is an embarrassment. Ayatollah Khamenei was the supreme leader of Iran. He had been in that position for several decades. Successive leaders from India and several other countries have met him and have been extremely respectful of him. He has been very close to India. Some of the most important agreements that we signed with Iran and engagements we had with successive prime ministers, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Dr. Manmohan Singh, all of them met the supreme leader. The supreme leader had a stature which is extraordinary, and we should be respectful of that stature. The murder of the supreme leader is one of the greatest travesties of modern times, and it is something it has wounded large numbers of people. It has also reminded people that Shia leaders from time to time have to sacrifice their life for a larger cause. I think Ayatollah Khamenei will enter that. Was this the best we could do to commemorate this great man's stature at a time when a neighbor and a very close friend, a country with which we have signed a strategic partnership initiative, all of that, a foreign secretary is, to my mind, unacceptable in this regard. Minimum, there should have been a foreign minister. It should even have been a higher stature. But it appears to me that we are extremely cautious at this stage with regard to the optics of our association with regard to Iran, with regard to the war inflicted upon Iran. Where the optics as viewed in Washington and in Tel Aviv. What has happened? We are an extremely important country in the world, a very powerful and self confident country in the world. How did we get to the stage when we are looking so pathetic? in
Why,
the
why, why,
on
why
the
do you
world
use that
stage.
word? Why do you use that word? That's a really strong word to use.
Absolutely, it's obvious in front of you. We
I-
have this foreign secretary is not the appropriate stature for the signing of the condolence book. We should, if we had to stop the war, we should have spoken out very strongly, both and our message should have gone to Washington and Tel Aviv. But we have, in both instances, remained silent and made some very loose and general remarks in front of the Finnish delegation, which has nothing which has nothing to do with anything that's happening at the moment.
Tell me this, for those who will say that India's caution is because why should India get pulled into a war that is not ours? That's sometimes what you hear, right? Whether it's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and now Israel and America on one side, Iran on the other. There are 10 million Indians nearly in the Gulf countries. There are, very serious consequences for us here. So it's better for us to keep our own interests in mind and not get caught up in the rhetoric of this conflict. What would you say?
This would be one of the more foolish observations from people who have not even minimum understanding of international affairs and of India's place in it. India has been consistently seeking, but particularly during the present dispensation, a place at the high table of international affairs. We even have asserted our right to be a permanent member of the Security Council. May I remind some of your interlocutors that India is not North Korea. We are a deeply engaged country. Again, we are located at the heart of the Indian Ocean, and we have deep seated concerns both with regard to what is happening in West Asia and what is taking place in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia. For anyone to say, Humko isse kya lena dena, these are completely foolish remarks and you should not waste your time with them. India is engaged. We have such high stakes in the region. We have our energy security, our trade, our investments, our joint venture, our connectivity project, and the presence of 10 million people who send off $40 billion. Can anybody say that these things don't matter? Humko isse kya lena dena? And I'm not asking us to send troops anywhere. I'm simply saying we should be a presence, our voice should be heard, and it should be heard with respect because we assert it on the basis of values. I have mentioned many times that I deeply regret that our foreign policy is adrift. It does not seem to have any purpose and direction, and certainly has no moral compass guiding it whatsoever.
Can I ask you to talk about the Gulf countries where you have spent so much of your professional time? Do you believe that the strategy by Iran was clear that if you're going to hit us in this way, we're going to hit you where it hurts, which is the global economy? Do you believe that that was what are the repercussions of that? Because of course global trade, global economy, aviation is all hit, but do you believe that that was a mistake, or that is something that is going to create pressure on the Americans? How do you see it?
It's very difficult to understand because this is one of the most pointless conflicts that one can imagine. The principles involved with it, Israel and the United States had never clearly told us what is the conflict about. What are you so angry about that you have to go and bomb the country and kill its top leadership? I don't understand. We have had Secretary of State Rubio tell us that the Israelis started the war and we got in because we were afraid that the Iranians would hit our assets. And that's why we got into the war. Then Donald Trump corrects him and says, no, I am the one who put pressure on the Israeli side, and because of my pressure, the Israelis initiated the war. At various times, Donald Trump has told us that he was trying to destroy the nuclear capability or the ballistic missile capability. Sometimes we hear that it could be regime change because after Ayatollah Khamenei passed away, he said he is the most evil person on earth. This is the kind of very strange mindset of some of these leaders who undertake conflict and leave behind an extraordinary trail of death and destruction without any sense of purpose, without any motivation, without any understanding of the end game, and without any prospect of when to declare that we have achieved our aims. Today, I have heard President Trump saying he wants the armed forces to surrender. You have just killed their supreme leader, and you say that
Yeah.
they should surrender. Surrender why? Many of them may accept martyrdom rather than surrender. I am shocked to see the abysmal ignorance of important American leaders who are engaged with politics in the region. Recall here just a few days ago, Mr. Witkoff says on Fox News, we have mobilized such a huge military force, and Donald Trump is unable to understand why they won't capitulate. I mean, which world are you living in? This is most bewildering, and it is something that makes no sense whatsoever to me. So, in this background, the Iranians had made it very clear that they will hit American assets in the neighborhood. The entire neighborhood in front of them, the Gulf Arab countries, they have got American bases and major American presence. This is unfortunately the best that the Iranians can do. This is the
Yeah.
firepower available with them. They have attacked certain iconic infrastructure as well as energy facilities besides
Yeah.
the American targets. Possibly their intention is to get these Gulf countries to agitate the matter in Washington and call a halt to this pointless conflict so that some semblance of stability is recovered.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are looking at a very serious problem relating to global energy. I'm not talking about Hormuz. Hormuz may or may not be closed. I'm talking about serious problems relating to the supply. And then you would have prices going up. Is this what the international community wanted to have? High prices, high energy prices, which were inevitable once you started this conflict. All of us
You
know the mantra that is most significant is very easy to start a war, almost impossible to end it on terms that are acceptable and satisfactory to you.
absolutely.
All of us who
And
are students of conflict are familiar with this adage, and yet, once again, the United States has initiated conflict. Look at the disasters they inflicted upon Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya, left behind hundreds of thousands of people dead, devastated cities, communities, and civilization. And then they had the luxury that you and I don't have. Pack the bags and run. And that's what they do best. And that's what they will do again.
you said that, and it's completely true, that it's Trump doesn't know basically how to end this war that he started. There is now talk of arming the Kurds and sending them in as proxies for American troops who will not put their own boots on the ground. What might be the implications if that actually happens?
You see, the Americans have used and misused the Kurds several times. They are the saddest people in contemporary West Asia. They are the people who lose their lives for causes whose sponsors do not have any regard or respect for them. Recall here that in 1991, after the first Iraq war against Saddam Hussein, the Kurds had been mobilized and the Shia were mobilized. Very quickly, the Americans abandoned the Shia, though allowed the Kurds to get some autonomy, abandoned the Shia, and very large numbers of them were killed. Again, in the case of Syria, the Americans promised autonomy and support to the Syrian Kurds. At a certain time, Donald Trump, in his first term, abandoned the Kurds and said that the guardian of the region will be the Turks. As far as Iran is concerned, I do not believe the Kurds have any unity of purpose. They have no reason to rise against their mother country. They have been treated very well. They are an integral part of the community and society. As far as the Iraqi Kurds are concerned, they are deeply divided between the Barzani and Talabani. And according to my own information, the Talabani are very close to Iran. So I think that this is a very desperate, futile, indeed useless initiative. If the Americans are so desperate to put to war against another country, have the courage to not use these very fragile proxies. Go ahead and take the beating that is in store for you.
Let me end by
This happened
asking
in
you.
Afghanistan, and this happened in Iraq, and this will happen once again in Iran once they get in.
Yeah, I mean, the history is testimony to the fact that wherever the Americans have tried regime change, they have left the country in a worse place than it was in when they came in. My last question to you is: do you see any off ramp or any contours of an off ramp at this moment?
There is no evidence of this just yet. I would share with you my personal perceptions of how things are likely to go in the near future.
Yes.
Number one, I can say with complete confidence the Islamic order is not going to break down. Iran is not Iraq. In the case of Iraq, you had a one man rule, a dictator, Saddam Hussein. Once Saddam Hussein was decapitated, the system broke down. But you did not have a smooth transition that had been promised to George Bush Jr. by those absolutely wicked Iraqis who had met him and the neocons who were pushing the agenda. There was no roses all the way. And the Americans had a miserable time in Iraq during
What
their
about the
occupation.
protest? What about the street protests against the regime?
That is all. This is part of misinformation. Overwhelmingly, the Iranian people are absolutely stunned at the reckless manner in which their revered supreme leader has been assassinated. Remember, here you yourself were there when the Iraqis were shown celebrating Saddam Hussein's fall when he actually had not fallen. This was part of the misinformation at that time to demoralize the Iraqis. So let's not waste our time on that. Consistently, the Americans have used proxies and consistently they have let those people down because they are cannon fodder as far as they are concerned. If they let them put their own feet on the ground, and we shall see the consequences of that. They will, then that is when the body bags will start going. So, according to me, there will be no fall of there will be no end of the Islamic Republic. Number one. Number two, I have serious doubts about Donald Trump's stamina and attention span. I can't see him fighting this war for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. At some
Mhm.
stage, he will desperately need to declare victory and back off, as Bush Jr. had done. Mission accomplished. That's when the
Mhm.
war began. And that is where you had the rise of extremist elements like Abu Musab Zarqawi and you had the Islamic State. So I feel that something will happen. Maybe Turkey will take a peace initiative, maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe some other a group of countries persuade Donald Trump that he has won. Iran is likely to come forward in a constructive way, and you are likely to have a nuclear agreement and a ballistic missiles agreement of the kind that was presented to him, but he did not. He ignored it at that time. I
Yeah.
believe that following all this, you may have a situation where you have a new leadership in Iran. I personally would like to believe it would be much more, much more moderate, much more accommodative, and much more constructive as far as neighborhood is concerned. I also believe that China and Russia are likely to play a major role in the future of this order. Yes, Israel will continue to feel disgruntled and want to go to war once again because that is what they do best. But I don't think that the Americans will encourage them too much. Which way things will go in Israel, I cannot predict at this stage because you have the presence of Mr. Netanyahu, who is a very wily individual and will not give up power easily. So we will see. But I am hope that within 2 weeks a peace process is initiated that enables Donald Trump to say that he brought peace into the region and once again claim the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that's the only thing to giggle about in this very grim time. Otherwise, Ambassador, Trump's narcissism, if I may say so. Thank you, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to hear your very feisty, passionate, and of course, years of experience behind everything you're saying. Thank you so much, sir. And we'll
I
reconnect with
wish
you
you all the
soon.
best.
You have given us a timeline of 2 weeks, and I think the world will only hope that you are well, even if it means playing to Trump's ego. If it brings this war to a halt, that is what the world would want.
I think that
on
is
that,
likely.
I think on that there can be no two views. Thank you, sir. Take care and see
Thank
you
you. I
soon.
wish you all the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And stop saying, sir.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.